It's very good to be here. Can you hear me all right? Is the microphone good? Okay. Yeah, this is like coming home for me, coming back to Naropa. So much of what the journey I've been on, and you've heard a little bit about, has been my own journey of the joyful warrior, or a saga. There's definitely been some ups and downs along the way. So it's really good to be back here, and also to test out some new material with some Buddhists that get my language, so to speak. In my own sort of hero's journey or joyful warrior journey, I've been many places. Where do I begin? I'll probably, as a writer-director, start with a short film I made called NatureRx.
Hi. Are you feeling tired, irritable, stressed out? Well, you might consider nature.
From the people that brought you Getting Outside comes prescription strength Nature, a non-harmful medication shown to relieve the crippling symptoms of modern life.
Nature's recommended for humans of all ages, and it's great for pets too.
Nature can reduce cynicism, meaninglessness, anal retentiveness, and murderous rage. In clinical studies, Nature is proven to decrease work-induced catatonia.
Caution. Nature may cause you to slow down, quit your job, or seriously consider what the you're doing with your life.
Do you have trouble being even mildly uncomfortable? Nature may not be right for you. Side effects may include spontaneous euphoria, taking yourself less seriously, and being in a good mood for no apparent reason.
So ask your doctor if nature is right for you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to say NatureRx has gone viral. It's been seen and screened all over the world. I think now in total views, we're around 40 million, almost to 50 million views on Facebook and YouTube when you add it all up. So, and the success of this has been amazing. And none of it was on my meal plan. Some of the success has also led to me giving a TEDx talk, speaking at Wisdom 2.0 in front of 3,000 people where I had a dissociative experience. I walked on stage, and I remember walking on stage, I remember people laughing at jokes and telling me the talk went really well, but I don't remember anything about being on stage at all. And then I got to meet and speak with Jane Goodall at the World Conservation Congress, which was definitely a pinch me moment. I've had a chance to meet some of my heroes, but and that can be disappointing at times, but Jane Goodall is the real deal. And she's a real inspiration and a real mentor in the joyful warriorship that I'd like to talk about and my own encounters with this. Like I said, this wasn't on my meal plan. Writing and directing NatureRx was total inspiration. I thought it would do well. I had no idea. So I had no plan to be here with you all. And this just continues to be part of this journey for me to find myself here with you. People ask me all the time, what inspires me to make NatureRx? And this question has been bugging me for the longest time. Does nature have a marketing problem? I'm a filmmaker, but I also, somewhere along the line, got my contemplative psychotherapy degree from this fine institution, Naropa. And so I'm a filmmaker with this psych degree. What does that mean? It basically means I'm a type A Buddhist. And as a type A Buddhist, I'm really interested in the stories that we're telling in our minds and the stories that we tell ourselves about humans and nature. And it's really interesting. I don't have much time. I'm going to jump right into it. This is a picture of your brain. And what happens, and this is a normal-looking brain, and this is what happens in your brain when you talk about climate change. And I think this is an accurate scientific depiction of what's going on in our brain when we talk about climate change, because it's big, it's scary, and it's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen, but if there is a story that most of us hear, and I criticize, or I challenge environmentalists to be careful about the subliminal message that they're telling, because I think very often when we talk about humans and climate change, we're telling a story as if the planet would somehow be better without us. And that's a defeatist thought. I think we're all suffering at some point with this notion that we are so separate from this problem. We are the problem. One of the biggest lies that civilization has told throughout history is that somehow we are separate from nature. You are a part of nature. Just as climate change is happening, you are also happening. This whole room is a manifestation of nature. It's not disconnected from it. I think that's really important. The joyful warrior embraces reality as it is, both the good and bad. And part of this is you are part of nature, just like David Bowie is part of nature. I think you can tell that in this image here. James Brown is a part of nature. You can tell what this manifestation is. And just like that, you are a part of nature too. So when we talk about nature or climate change, it's really important to look at what's the stories that we're telling in our mind. And I don't know, we're at a Buddhist school here, so there is the idea of reincarnation. You don't have to believe in it. It's true, but you don't have to believe in it. The idea that somehow you chose to be in this moment. You chose to be here when there was climate change. And I don't think we think of that in this sort of lie of disconnection. We don't think that we were meant for this moment and actually maybe chose to be. But even no matter what, we've been thrown into this situation. There's opportunities to see where we show up. I think in the lie that we tell about being separate from nature, we forget that most of our ancestors had this story deeply embedded in their minds, that they were part of nature. And sometimes we experience that when we go outdoors and we get to the mountaintop. We have that feeling. And then we come back to this mundane reality and we forget. And we feel overwhelmed and disempowered around climate change. So the first thing we want to do is break apart that myth. The second thing a joyful warrior does is loves and acknowledges his enemy. This is Rory Sutherland. His TED Talk, Life Lessons from an Ad Man. He's a cheeky, delightful Brit. He actually makes a great point about the value of advertising. I think people say corporate greed is the reason we have climate change. I think actually corporate greed is just better storytellers than most of us activists. And I think we have to get honest and see and love our enemy to know what they do really well. Advertisers don't try to sell you on how right they are or how great Coca-Cola is and the chemical qualities and what makes it right. People aren't persuaded so much by our self-righteousness about how right we are. They're interested in stories, and ad people know the stories that connect with us. Specifically, Rory Sutherland makes the point that ad people are going to be really valuable in the future ahead because the same subjective value or bad value we put on brands are the same things that teach us how to also enjoy consuming less. And so I highly recommend listening to his TED Talk. And it's also interesting to listen to Rory to understand sort of the story, what's the broadcast that's going on in our minds all the time? What are the stories that we can tell ourselves that may not actually be valuable? What are the commercials that are running all the time? So here are 4 secret ingredients that are in all effective advertisements that are really valuable, and it actually makes watching advertisements that much more enjoyable. 1, ads are personal and relatable. They have ideas that instantly connect to our lives. Tired, irritable, stressed out, try nature. Ads present ideas in novel and empowering ways. And this is where humor becomes really powerful because humor is all about creating fun, new ways of looking at things. Ads invite us to join the party or movement. It's this idea that something's already happening. And I think with the climate crisis, this is a big one. I think we're actually getting closer to the tipping point. When we talk about joyful warriorship, we don't have enough stories about how humans have succeeded in facing various climate disasters. A fundamental question of civilization is the human relationship to nature. Every civilization has had to face this problem before. This is not the first time. We just never had to do it on a global level. But other civilizations have done this before. 16th century China realized they were going to deforest the whole country and created new laws, and now they have some of the best forests in the world. I think even if you go to prehistory, Malaysia and Australia used to be connected, and when they separated, Australia became basically, many, many humans died. But the Australians learned to become stewards of the planet and burned sagebrush. And as a result, they made the whole environment more verdant, not just for themselves, but for all animal species. And they caused more life to exist. So we don't tend to think of ourselves this way. And with the climate crisis, I think we're at that tipping point. We're at the point where people are starting to see that they may be missing out. We don't hear stories about actual joyful warriors, about soldiers in China and India that are literally planting thousands of trees. We don't hear enough of those stories. So the prescription of NatureRx is this kind of value. And this is what advertisers, they're not the kind of value of like your stock exchange or whatever. The value that we're talking about is intrinsic value, the feelings that we all want in life. And there's only 3 things that most humans want, is to feel happy, connected, and free. And I think when you look at this picture, you get a sense for what that's like. And that's what advertisers are selling us all the time, not the kind of value of trying to convince you. They're trying to associate an experience with their products. Do you know how many car commercials and beer commercials show people enjoying and benefiting from nature? A lot of them. Watch advertisements. They'll show people in nature all the time. Do you know how many drug commercials show people outdoors enjoying and benefiting from nature? A whole lot of them. Wow. You know the Cialis commercial with a couple in the two bathtubs outside? Why are they outside? Brands know the true value we have for nature. Of course, they associate the happiness, connection, and freedom we get from nature with their products. So I think it's easy, not hard. It's easy to tell a new story about humans and nature. And in fact, it's the oldest story we've ever told, from cave paintings to Star Wars. Getting outdoors, reconnecting to nature, is the original hero's journey. It's where you leave your mundane existence, the village that tells you what you should be and how you should be living, and you get into the mystery of nature, and you meet your challenges, and you find out who you really are. And you don't even need a Yoda backpack to do this. You don't. Call REI, discontinue the Yoda backpacks. You may need spiritual guidance. You may need those 4 storytelling devices that I told you about, those 4 magical ingredients, to help you tell a new story. But getting outdoors, reconnecting to nature, is a part of us that opens up to awe and possibility. When NatureRx started, it was just me and 4 friends who went into the woods to make a film. I had no idea that I'd be here, that I'd be speaking in front of people, where it would lead. And then just on the full other side of the story, recently NatureRx led to me getting to spend time with one of my personal heroes of joyful warriorship, AOC. Yes, give it up for AC. What I love, there are many great climate activists right now and leaders, but what I really love about AOC is the degree to which she balances the negative discussion about what's happening with a vision for the future. And I think this is the other part of joyful warriorship. You have some sense that there is a better tomorrow ahead. You have to hold that. And part of that too, which is interesting for me, nature's going to be fine. Whether there's only 50 of us or 50 billion of us, we're going to learn this lesson. And I think the joyful warrior understands that in some ways you can never be beaten. Being a part of the battle, you know that whatever you participate, even if you don't live, I may not live, none of us may live to see this day, but at some point we're gonna learn the lesson of humility and balance with nature. Because thank you, it's an intrinsic part. And for us as Buddhists out there, the Chinese character for crisis is very similar to the Chinese character for opportunity. This is a time where more people are thinking about their relationship to nature in ways they've never done before. In my experience, social change happens very, very slowly, then all of a sudden it just goes. For instance, like gay rights and gay marriage in this country. So different lessons on joyful warrior. The first one, loves reality just as it is. You and David Bowie are nature, and so is corporate greed. Knows and loves its enemy and the struggle. And part of this is embracing that you were made for this moment, that there's a reason that you're here. The fourth is embracing and harnessing all emotions. And again, because my time is limited here, I've sort of, given a very polished, skimmed over version, but I don't want to lose sight that this isn't about spiritual or psychological bypassing. You have to feel the feelings of grief about mass extinction. You have to feel the sadness about technological addiction that many of us have because those algorithms are smarter than we are. You have to feel the sadness of the fact that so many people are suffering from the fundamental crisis of disconnection. And I think that the problems that we face right now are totally related to our interactions and feelings about nature. And this is what brands do so well, actually. They speak to both the personal and universal value of something. So when we talk about solutions for climate change, the stories we need to tell offer solutions to people, offer solutions to the people's problems in their lives and the issue of climate change at the same time. And then the final one is seize a better tomorrow. Couldn't care less about outcomes. I think this feeling's a lot like when you first like somebody and you're not certain that it's going to work out, but you have some sense that I need to do this, and it might be really hard, and you might need your friends and your mentors to tell you to be patient and to keep going. I think this is the feeling, but in this story, the person you're falling in love with is yourself. Not in spite of climate change, but because of climate change. So we can do that. We can hold a vision for ourselves. And this is the beauty of working with an archetype. It's not so much to identify with that archetype, but to bring it more into your day every day and to see it as a part of all of us, that we have this manifestation. So we can imagine ourselves in climate change and falling in love with ourselves because of climate change. Who is that person? What is that vision of yourself you see in that future? What have you been able to joyfully get rid of? Where have you become more activated and connected? And I will make a plug for, just like Coca-Cola doesn't try to convince you how great their Coke product is, they tell you a story about a couple falling in love outdoors and they put a Coke in between them. You are also, I want to make a plug for being more civically engaged. Connect with a story that connects you to other people. Your personal choices are amazing. I don't want to take away from those, but who's been to a climate strike before? All the feelings that they're selling in commercials, you'll get on a climate strike. That sense of connection and that sense of joy you'll get from being involved with others. And it'll actually make a bigger difference in terms of fighting this fight. So join with others. So just to get back to value, this is like a Rorschach test, I think, in some ways, because we have this association after seeing NatureRx that this is a positive experience. But this is sort of like humans being thrown in the world, naked and afraid, just thrown out there. And as a director, I never tell anybody to do things that I wouldn't do. So I also jumped naked off this pier, and the water was freezing. But at the same time, there's that exhilaration in recognizing that there is a moment here, there's a way to embrace this struggle. Open up and say, ah. Nature offers us all of these possibilities. I think for me, for instance, when the Amazon was burning, this was the perfect moment for me to get outdoors and reconnect with nature. And that can look like your house pet, that could look like your plant in your home, all the different ways that reminds you that you are connected to a wider system. And the neuroscience shows that this opens up your creativity, it opens up your thinking, it makes you more sustainable, it makes you more cooperative and empathetic. Open up to possibility. We're at Naropa, where there are enough amazing and talented artists and therapists and various activists, sustainability activators in the room that can change the world. We just need to come up with new stories that are fun, empowering, and motivate us for the journey ahead. When we talk about nature and we talk about the human connection to nature, it's important to remember the joyful warrior in all of us, and to remember that in this journey, there are more struggles than, like I said, I've had time to speak about. For me, I just heard today that NatureRx is going to be launching an online summit. And for me, this is great too, because I never wanted to be in this position to be the face of NatureRx. So for the future, we're going to have people like Christy Peoples from Sounds True, and Bethany Leibowitz from Brown Girls Climb, and Taisha Adams from Outdoor Afro, leading the charge and speaking up here like I am speaking now. When we talk about humans and nature, there's this idea that somehow we're disconnected from the wider world. But there are ways that we can create fun, new, inspiring stories about humans and nature that arouse our courage and motivate us for the journey ahead, something we don't want to miss out on. But you don't have to take my word for it. Ask your doctor if nature's right for you. Thank you.